go. Make sure we don't have a bunch of drop frames. Holy hell. Of course, private live stream. Everything works flawlessly. Gotta love it.
Really?
0% drop frames. Whereas right when I started the last two I did, it was like 50%.
Well, Mexico isn't as socialist as the U.S., so we have better internet.
Damn. That sucks.
Okay, I'll go ahead and get rolling, guys.
All right.
And welcome to the Vonnie Podcast, the podcast making you invulnerable to coercion. I'm Shane.
I'm Jason.
I'm Paul.
I'm Andrew.
Hey, that went better than I thought it would. Cool. A couple of you guys aren't on the podcast. Nice. This podcast, everything found on the website, is covered by BIPCOT, no government license, allows reuse and modification to anyone except for governments and the bludgies thereof. You can learn more by visiting bipcot.org. So it's a packed house today, as we've got a special live stream exclusively for TVP patrons. If you're here and tuning in, thank you so much for supporting the podcast and for joining us for what I believe to be a pretty important discussion. It's titled The Faux State Solution, exploring the question of force and ending statism, and due to the subject matter at hand, we decided to do this semi-privately at first, and there are a couple key reasons for this. First off, we want to ensure there are no accidental violations of Brandenburg v. Ohio. This is the Supreme Court ruling that laid out what is free speech and what is not. According to the ruling, if there is no incitement or specific targeting, it is free speech. And secondly, since we'll be strategizing, we want to ensure nothing sensitive is released to our enemy, the state. Or in other words, we want to practice good operation security, good OPSEC. So this will be released to the general public, but maybe not in its entirety. I'm not 100% sure. And plus, I might have to do a little audio editing on my end. As I've told you before, guys, the things are a little chaotic on my end. I don't have a home. So half my studio's in Acapulco.
I don't got a home.
So yeah, I'm kind of dealing with a half-assed studio right now, and apparently the cord I'm using. If you hear any background noise or static, I do sincerely apologize. Definitely do send me hate speech things and such, because bad audio is a hate crime. So I do sincerely apologize.
Can I say something about the bad audio?
Please do.
Do you guys know what the word samizdat means?
No.
Samizdat is the Samizdat press is the underground revolutionary press, and it had a certain grunginess to it, because they had to budget. So I think it's fitting that we have the cracks and crackles in this episode. It's like it adds
turning
that
a negative into a positive. I love it. Underground radio.
It's like we're on vinyl.
The ambiance.
That's the NSA trying to break through, but we're stopping them.
Oh, gosh. No, guys. What that is, it's the encryption working. So don't worry about it. The encryption going out to the general public. But anyway, so I figured we'll start with introductions because at least for the Vonnie podcast audience, I know we've had Andrew on before. You should know Jason Boothe. If you don't, then you're doing something wrong. But Paul Gordon is this is his first time here on TVP, so I figured we'll start with some introductions, and then I'll lay out some background information because this is a subject that we've discussed quite a bit in the past, but we're certainly going to build upon it today. And then I guess we'll just see where it goes, because I really don't know, and I think that's part of the fun with these sorts of discussions. So, Paul, we'll start with you, man. What do you? Who are you, and what do you do?
I am Paul Gordon. I am sick. That's what I do now. Now, what I used to do is I did podcasts, and I still write articles sometimes on iState.tv. That's my site. I just treat it as a personal blog now. And I'm working on a project, which hopefully if I get well enough, I'll be able to actually do, called PG Newser, which is short for Pretty Good Newser, in which I'm actually trying to build a news app that it would be a daily audio show, about 12 minutes. It's designed to talk about the trending topics and everything, so it'll get coverage, but most of the show is actually going to be doing things like talking about the science, the tech, the things that are tilting the balance of power towards individuals. And I'm going to say, what's it called? My brain, I'm having a little brain drain here. Where you come to an agreement, whatever. I'll get it. Free associations, whatever you want to call it. It's a soft way to spread the gospel of liberty, if you will. I'll use that word.
Oh, the gospel.
Hopefully that'll be what I do. But right now, I'm sick. I'm Paul Gordon, and I'm sick, and I talk. That's what I am.
Bishop Pauli of the Church of Freedom.
Yes, I have been Pope Paul Anarchist the 17th at least twice, so I should have noted that too. I apologize.
Yeah. Well, it's an honor to be graced by your presence, sir.
You're welcome.
So
I'm retired. I have
Andrew,
no papal bulls to give you.
So Andrew, we'll go through next. Well, who are you and what do you do?
I'm Andrew. I'm the Inked Anarchist. I run my own Facebook page. I admin for a couple of other pages. Do the Anarchy Among Friends Roundtable podcast with Jason, and then I also have my own YouTube channel, Inked Anarchist, which regrettably has kind of gone to the boneyard recently because I've been busy with so many other projects. But it does still exist. It's still out there. So
I'm a subscriber.
Right on, and you
awesome.
You know everything about guns. Like, there's not one thing.
Yeah, well, I don't know about everything. That's I'm not Gun Jesus, but he knows everything about guns.
Well,
No, I am very, very experienced with firearms. I was a weaponry sergeant, so that was my entire specialty when I was still a bludgy. So that was everything that I did. I gunsmith. I do a lot of shooting. I teach people to shoot. I'm working on founding Iron Harvest Tactical to actually start doing training for people who don't have the experience with firearms that I do, to how to build guns, how to manufacture firearms, how to use said firearms and deploy them effectively.
Very cool.
Give a quick background on your military experience, because I think that's going to come into a lot of play as we go on about this discussion.
All right, so what I am not contractually obligated to not talk about, what I can say is that essentially what I did was light infantry. I was part of 3rd Special Forces Group. So if you ever go to Fort Bragg, that's us. And I did 3 deployments, basically running all of the guns for all the guys, doing weapons maintenance and all of that stuff. And then also training indigenous forces. We worked pretty extensively with the Peshmerga and like the Northern Alliance in Afghanistan. Did a lot of work with the Kurds in a couple of other places. Did work with some indigenous forces on a few other continents and things. So for years of my life, basically, I wasted away my young adulthood doing that. So I know guns and I know how to use them as well.
And your degree is in?
I actually have a couple. I have a degree in military history. I have a bachelor in military history. And then I also have an associate's in IT networking and encryption.
So,
right on.
So you see why I like this guy?
Yes, I do, and I see why you added him.
What a valuable commodity he is.
Yes, I do, and I do feel bad because I put together the show I mentioned, and Jason added him to our Telegram group and was like, "Hey, he wants to join," and I was like, "Yeah, he should be there." But yeah, you're not going to see Andrew's face on the
billboard, baby.
It's okay, but certainly great to have you on board with this. I think it'll prove valuable as we go forward in this discussion. And last but not least, Jason, I guess give us a short introduction about what you do other than co-hosting the Vonnie podcast.
Oh, other than co-hosting the Vonnie podcast, I run the badquaker.com Facebook page. I do promote Ben's book. Also run a Wolf in a Sheeple's World. Andrew's on that one. Anarchy Among Friends Roundtable discussion. I kind of host and do that one also with Andrew. And yeah, I mean, ask around. I mean, my name's kind of circulated around pretty much everywhere. Seeds of Liberty podcast, Abolition Abstractions. I did a Liberty Under Attack with you and Ben Stone a year ago.
Oh, correct. Yeah, you got on that episode. That was good.
That was good.
That was a good episode.
Putting bludgies 6 feet under or something like that is the name of that one. Yeah.
I actually forgot.
And looks like Shane lost audio.
Oh, whoops. I muted my mic.
Up, you're back.
Yes, I actually forgot to put the Patreon post for this. I'm multitasking right now. I do apologize. So for the patrons who did get a notification about this yet, we haven't gone into anything. I'll just hit publish now, and hopefully everything's going to work out fine. I think so. But anyway, so I think before we start with this contentious discussion, we should probably lay out kind of the philosophical justifications, and also I guess the philosophical justifications, and also I guess. And my perspective, at least, is as to why this sort of discussion is morally and ethically sound. So I like to start with just real briefly. I think argumentation ethics and dialogical estoppel really by Hans Hermann Hoppe really lay out the justification for this. So for those who are new to this idea, argumentation ethics says that first off, any individuals who argue have already forsworn the use of threat or initiatory force. Secondly, that argumentation ethics affirms self-ownership, which does not fall prey to being a performative contradiction. So, in other words, any individual who makes arguments against private property must first exercise the implicit ownership of their own bodies, i.e. the use of their mouth, their brain, vocal cords, etc., which, if done, would result in performative contradiction. So that's argumentation ethics, and then furthermore, dialogical estoppel basically says that if someone violates person or property, then they cannot claim violation of their person and property when they get retributive force or anything like that used against them. So self-defense, basically, it justifies self-defense, and that the violator can't claim self-ownership as a way to avoid the punishment or the restitution. So I guess I'll stop there. If you guys want to toss anything on that one, I'm not sure how much you've looked into argumentation ethics or dialogical estoppel, but I'll turn it over to the floor and we'll see what we come out with.
Well, I have no interest in argumentation ethics. I have interest in as far as what we're going to be talking about. Just so I want to make it clear, I'm not jettisoning argumentation ethics. I'm just saying, as far as this is concerned, I really don't care. I don't care about morality or ethics. I care about the reality of power, and the reality of power is such: if you can't defend yourself, you die. And the more that you stick out as being different from the others, and the more that difference fundamentally challenges their legitimacy, the more of a target you are. So that's all I care about. I'm not here to try to make anybody feel better about their choices and giving them a moral safety pill. Nope.
Fair enough.
I'm standing on my preferences. My preference is to live and to be free. So, that's it.
Fair enough.
I can't say it any better than Paulie.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Sounds
I don't
good.
believe in anything. I'm just here for the violence. So
No, I was sugarcoating it.
Very good, very good. So, I think also too, just another piece of background information on Liberty Under Attack. We had a series called "Building the Second Realm," and as we, I guess the Faux State Solution, that terrific title that Paul came up with. I think that's kind of we're going to be building upon that idea, and the idea is to build free autonomous zones throughout the world where we can be free from the state and free from the status of society. So not building the new society within the shell of the old, but outside of it and despite its existence. So I think in today's discussion, we're going to go one step further and maybe talk about how to make those more sustainable going into the future. So if you want more information on that, just go to libertyunderattack.com/Second Realm. You can find all 14 or 15 episodes. You can find a Second Realm book on strategy, literally the book on the Second Realm, and other resources too, like #Agora, terrific crypto Agora's novella. Anonymous.
I'm rereading through that one.
Yep. And then there's also A Lodging of Wayfaring Men by Paul Rosenberg, which I do highly recommend. A couple pieces of fiction if you're more into that sort of thing, and looking at how these faux states or how these second realms could look in reality. Alongside that idea is the notion of temporary autonomous zones and permanent autonomous zones. This was, I guess, not first propagated by a guy named Hakeem Bey, but I guess he kind of put it into a book, and I guess in his very, very flowery way of saying things, he kind of laid out what these things are. Basically, temporary. If they're mobile, like Van Nomad Squat Spot would be a temporary autonomous zone. Freedom Fest will be a temporary autonomous zone because it's not there all the time. Permanent autonomous zones would be things like intentional communities, things like that. So I guess anything so far, or else I'm going to turn it over to Paul and have him kind of set the stage for our discussion today.
Other than setting the stage, I have nothing else.
Okay. All right. So, so Paul, this is actually there was a status you put up on December 18th, actually, and it said, unless you have the land and the power to hold it, you only have hopeful wishes. Anarchy without power is wishful thinking. So, Paul, tell us about what sparked that status, and we'll start there.
History. History is what sparked that status. And I can give two very countervailing examples to kind of give a balance to what I'm talking about here with force. The first example is the Peasants Revolt of 1381, and I'm not going to go through all the details of it, but essentially a plague happened, a whole bunch of people died, and it kind of tilted the balance of power towards individuals as opposed to, the king system for a number of reasons. And they kind of started to live more uppity lives, by what the king would look and the royalty would look. And so they passed laws to try to prevent them from living those lovely lives. And they tried to prevent, there was much more mobility in employment than there had ever been before. So they just tried to pass all kinds of laws to artificially hamper this natural flourishing. And they reacted and they organized in really remarkable ways. This is before YouTube and Facebook and Twitter, a little bit before that. And there's this guy, John Ball, who he became the focal point with his when Adam delved and Eve swam, who was first, the gentleman, and that was he was saying essentially the whole divine rule thing was BS, but not everybody had come fully along with that, and they arrive in London and they have all of the advantage over. He's a 14-year-old king, Richard, and they're meeting on, I don't know, is it Clerkenwell Field or whatever field it was, and they got all the freaking power, and the king writes out a whole bunch of promises, basically gives them everything they want, or so they think. And so they see this thing on a piece of paper, king, the authority, and paper, and they all, more than half of them leave. But even at that point, they still have an advantage. So they send over their guy Wat Tyler to negotiate, get more negotiation stuff settled. And it's disputed what happened, but essentially Wat Tyler gets mortally wounded, and his guys are not happy. And the king rides up to them, and the king says, "Am I not God's appointed?" And they leave. And then he proceeds to not do anything that he promised, and he kills all the leaders. In this instance, what you had was you had all these advantages, what I call demonstrable power. You had social power, you had force power, but you didn't have ideational power. So this is my lesson to say, as we go into this, I'm not leaving the ideational. I understand if your heart is still fixed on authority, you will want to find authority no matter what. That has to change. The power isn't enough. But so then there's the other side of that equation, which is what's it called? Maresnay. Have you guys heard of Maresnay? They're in it's between Belgium and Germany, and existed between, I think it's like 1816 to 1920. That might, I think, something like that. I'm echoing. Okay, now I'm not. It was a mining town, and it was kind of like Germany. It didn't really have much to offer. It was in the mountains. It was highly defendable, and it really didn't have a lot to offer Germany or Belgium, and neither one of them really wanted the expense of taking it on. So it just kind of lived in this marsh and this little limbo land. And they had an anarchist, essentially an anarchist community. This is where they became one of the, I think, they spoke Esperanto after a point. They adopted Esperanto. They had Belgians and Germans when they began. There were Belgians and Germans, and they were divided. By the end, when the Belgians and the Germans were kind of settled, what do we do with this? The Germans were like, well, we'll separate the Belgians and the Germans, and you couldn't do it because they were all just fully enmeshed because all that national identity had left, and it was phenomenal experiment. But there's one thing that they didn't have. They had no military whatsoever. They had no defensive forces whatsoever. So when the Germans decided, you know what, I don't like this, they just marched right in and they took the land. And if you look at all of human history as I see it more and more, and I've been going, YouTube has a whole bunch of great history videos, by the way, a lot of great battle videos, real awesome stuff. But I'm not just using YouTube, but definitely YouTube is a great source. What you're going to see is systems rise and fall based on their ability to field a force or their ability to be remote and not a target. If you don't have a force, you don't exist. If you don't have the ability to fend off your guys around you, they're going to come in after you. It's just going to happen. They have to. They have to expand until they can expand no more. Rome expanded to the point that it was no longer a profitable venture. And that's the nature of states. So if anybody is talking about trying to see in order for us to be able to say to people that anarchy works, we have to be able to, we have Morisnet, that's one example, small, but we need more examples. Rojava is struggling to be one of the examples. If we don't have the examples, that's the most powerful tool to convert people over ideationally, is to show them and that it works. And if you're going to build this model from within, you must have force or you will die. You will, I mean, what's going on in Rojava? Rojava is playing a really, really clever game. And it was really my observations of Rojava that started me thinking about. I started to understand what they were doing because I saw things, I saw titles, and one of the cantons has actually, has taxes. Only one of the, I think there's 4 cantons. But what I saw, what I started to figure out, they're using the U.S. as much as they possibly can for protection, and they're playing the state game. They're acting like a state in so many ways. But if you look at the way that they govern, the word I was looking for that my head couldn't get was consensual. They govern in a direct democracy, consensual manner. It is as close as you can get to anarchy, I think, but I won't get. That's another conversation. But the point is that they have to play that game if they're going to, raise the A and fly it around and declare no state. This is just like when the French
if there's no
chopped
state,
off,
then it's right for the taking, essentially.
Well, more than that, when the French lopped off Charles the First head. The reaction from all of the monarchs was not cool. It was, okay, we're going to attack France. They're going to attack you, even if you declare yourself a non-state, and you see what happens. They'll attack you right away. So I would highly recommend you don't do that. Even if you are a non-state, don't do that. You create offices. You create, well, I won't get into. I'll just leave it at that. I'm just going to stop it there because anything beyond this point is probably going to come up in other parts of this conversation. I want to.
Right, and what's and one thing you mentioned, or I guess what's sparked your I actually posted. Well, so like the first thing that came to mind when I saw your status was an article I wrote about Roger Ver and the Free Society Foundation trying to buy a piece of land from a government and declare it Ancapistan or Libertopia or whatever they want to call it, a free society. People were really excited about it. They were super excited about it, and I saw it, and I was like, okay, I'm glad this is an interesting direction. I've wanted to see examples of this or modern attempts at this. So I read through. Actually, no. So the So what happened was I saw some. I guess I saw some slides, or I got some information from Facebook about what was said, and I wrote an article on it. And I referenced Erwin Strauss's "How to Start Your Own Country." Now, this book was published in the 1960s, late 60s, I think, early 70s, and it highlighted, went through all the history of startup societies, seasteads, all sorts of those examples of people trying to create free societies and different societies, and the conclusion that he came to after really examining the subject was, if a free society is going to exist, whether it be a seastead or whether it be, like Roger Ver, maybe they actually buy a piece of land from some third world government. You have to have defense. You have to have defense and or the acquisition of nuclear weapons, and you must be willing to use them. You must be willing to use them, because if you aren't willing to use them, then what's the point? Basically, his conclusion was, if you're going to be country building, whatever term you want to call it, country building, nation building, society building, you're playing the game of states, and you have to play the game of states. So if you don't like that, then you might want to choose a different maybe a different strategy or something along those lines. So that's something I've thought about for quite some time, and I don't like the idea of. But it doesn't matter what I like or what I don't like. We're talking about reality here. Without defense. So I guess let me go back to Roger Ver's Free Society Foundation. Let's say they do buy that piece of land from some third world government. They explicitly state no nuclear weapons and obviously no initiatory force, which is great. I'm obviously fine with that. But why there's only a limited amount of land on Earth, right? There's only a limited amount of land. Why would a government sell a portion of a land off to people who obviously hold very contrary ideas openly? Like, it's not
Right.
hidden. It's very openly. And you consider the possibility of drug running and gun running and all those sorts of things. They're not going to like it too much. And also, like I said, with a limited amount of land, why would they sell it off when they can do like a 99-year lease and then they can just go back on it anytime they want to? Because they don't have to uphold their contractual agreements. No. And there are examples throughout the 20th century showing that states violate their 99-year leases. That they come to these countries. So it's not going to happen. I'm sorry, Roger. I'm really sorry. And if a government does end up taking that $100 billion of Bitcoin, they're going to take that land too. And that's just going to be, some government's going to become a very, very large holder of Bitcoin. And I'm not too fond of that idea. So
and if they take the land and the Bitcoin, like, who do you appeal to? Another state, right? Like,
Andrew, you got something you want to add in there, bud?
Yeah.
Well, and that goes into a thing that I've not made a lot of people happy about pointing out the idea of right of conquest, right? Which is not necessarily that I think you do have a right to things because you conquered them, but that the practical reality is that anyone who is capable of conquering and does owns it. That's theirs now. So you can make all the contracts you want to with any government that you want to, but if they have the ability to take it from you, you don't own it ever. That's not yours anymore. And it never was. You just gave away money is what you did.
Yeah, just like with property in the United States right now. I mean, you pay taxes on it, right? So you're paying rent to the government for land that you claim is your own. Well, it's not your land. It's the government's land. You're just renting it from them, right?
Yeah, I pay rent. I pay rent to my government.
That's no different than what Roger Ver tried to do.
In essence,
right?
Yeah. In essence, yeah. Yeah.
And if you don't have
Good,
if
Jason.
you don't have the means and ability to defend that piece of land you claim is your own, if you don't have the ability to defend and the willingness to defend the dirt underneath your feet, then it's not your dirt. It's as simple as that. You're there at the government's permission.
Right, and also too, something Erwin Strauss points out, and I thought it was a great observation. He's going to say it a lot better than I did, but basically, like if there's going to be, we'll just use the Free Society Foundation as an example here. They're openly they announced it at a conference, put it on YouTube, and it's very very openly thing like, hey, we're going to start a free society. Or we're going to start a new country, new nation, whatever you want to call it. Well, governments around the world have an incentive to keep the number of states down. Less states mean less competition, and it means things remain more close to as they were before with the similar power structure in place. So they have a direct.
I would dispute. I would actually dispute that.
Okay, go for it.
I think I think that there are definitely times when governments favor the creation of multiple states, but only in an instance where it's dividing a larger enemy. But
yes.
So that would be there is a time when
if they're the ones directing it.
Well, yeah, and you see
not always. Sometimes even if they're not, if they don't fully understand what it is and they just look at it as a disruptor, and they're very short-sighted, because often they are, especially if they're in heated, if they're in trouble themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's are probably opportunities right there that you might get governments, just sending you some money. I don't know if I necessarily would want to do that approach, but somebody.
Well,
might.
and you to that point, you do actually see that, especially at the end of World War I, where you see. In World War I with the Ottoman Empire, with the British sending T.E. Lawrence in to break up the Ottoman Empire to make it weaker, but then immediately afterwards, because remember, Lawrence had promised the Arabs that they were going to get one giant land chunk that was going to be there.
Their caliphate. Yeah,
exactly. And then the Sykes-Picot Agreement happens between England and France, and that turns that big piece into lots of little ones. And the reason they did that was largely to hedge their bets. Because if one government that controls all of it turns unfriendly and they have all of the oil reserves, what do you do now? You only have one government to deal with. But if I can make it a whole bunch of little ones, if these guys won't give me their oil, I can get it from them. So you're hedging your bets as a country by encouraging all of the little countries in that area when it's resource rich, because it's beneficial to you, because now you can manipulate that market. You can manipulate those resources more easily by dealing with lots of little ones than by consolidating ownership.
I would say in general, large governments would probably favor a whole bunch of small countries. Mm-hmm. Other than, if they're not theirs, they'd rather them be small countries, I would think.
Well, yeah, small countries means less resources, which means less money, which means less defense, and less influence, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, it's like the Hussites, they kicked butt, man. The Catholics kept coming in row after row, and the Hussites kept kicking butt, but then the Hussites turned on each other, and then that was it. The end of the show.
Okay.
They essentially broke down into little micro states or whatever. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and that was good for the Catholics. They loved it.
Okay, so I guess the question I have for you guys is, so if we're talking about Ancapistan or something like that, would the approach? Do you think the approach would be similar, or do you think they'd see that as a direct opposition? Like direct opposition confronting their authority. Do you think they could approach it in a similar manner, or do you think it'd be completely different?
If you're Rojava. If you would take the approach like Rojava is like, even though they're anti-nationalist, they kind of play, this is for the Kurds, they're kind of playing that angle. They know the angle to approach, but that's not really their focus. They're not really Kurdish focused. I mean, they're predominantly Kurds, but there's a lot of people that live in Rojava that are, there's white Americans living in Rojava. White middle class Americans living in Rojava, and they're considered Rojavans. It's the idea, but they're not. They haven't declared. I mean, I think Rojava just means like South Kurdistan or something like that. They're not declaring we're Libertopia. Yes, we're Ancapistan. No, we're the free land area of Quartapan or whatever. And you know what whatever, and sometimes it means you might even make a deal with them where maybe they want your oil, and you have technologies and abilities, you don't need that much oil, and you're like, okay, I'm just going to take this trade-off for now and buy me time, and while this is going on, I'm building my shit up. Mm-hmm. So I think it's very possible.
That's the thing with Rojava is they have the ability, and they've shown the willingness to defend themselves.
Oh yeah.
All right, and that's one of the reasons that they still exist, is because they have balls and they're not afraid to show them.
They fully understand the need for force, And they're still, even as we speak, I mean, I don't know. I don't know all the details over Java, but probably more than most because nobody's paying attention. That doesn't mean much for me, but I know that they are actively working on improving their. They're not satisfied where they're at. They're actively working on improving their defensive positions, their military hardware and training and all that. They're constantly trying to improve because they know.
Well, it's not like they're amateurs at that either in that region. I mean, you don't call that area the graveyard of empires for no reason. Everybody who tries to go in there gets slaughtered. I mean, from the clear back the British trying to go in, and even with fairly modern, rifles, still wind up being just completely decimated by the Jaleels, which is basically a really weird looking musket. If you've never seen one, they're really cool. They're really beautifully decorated. They're really rare here in the United States. But they are basically just a black powder muzzle loading gun. And yet they took out what was at the time the most powerful military power in the world and held them off. Because they used everything to their advantage that they had, and because they meant it. And that was the big, that will. They meant what they were doing. They wanted to keep the British out, and they didn't give a crap that what the British had to say. Like, we'll simply kill you, and if we can't kill you today, we're going to wait a little bit, and we'll kill you tomorrow. Like, it's beautiful. What the Kurds were able to pull off is just phenomenal. And a hell of an asymmetric warfare campaign,
right? And to speak to that, I mean, and in my interview with Cody Wilson, he said something like, "If you aren't willing to kill for ideology, then you aren't serious," or something along those lines. And that's why, like, if I look at the modern anarchist community today, at least in the West, right? At least in the West, I don't know. There's a lot of talk about building a free society and such, but you wonder why people don't take anarchists seriously, right? I mean. It just seems like the furthest you get.
I have a laundry list.
The furthest you get into use of force issues is peaceful parenting, and generally speaking, and I mean,
I actually try to do peaceful parenting. So.
No, sure, I get that, but that's the furthest it goes, right? I mean, we're way beyond that right now, right? We're way beyond that.
Yeah.
So,
oh yeah, I mean, peaceful parenting is like I said in the beginning, I wanted to make clear, I'm not eschewing the importance of ideational change.
Sure. Oh,
but,
of course not. Of course not. Oh, I get that, but if we're
but peaceful parenting, it is not going to do it.
Right.
Not by itself.
Right. No.
Yeah.
So see, if
you can try to talk people to death, but shooting them in the face works a little better.
Yeah. Now I have still come to the conclusion that at least for me, I don't begrudge anarchists that try to change this, use the state in some way to, change laws or end taxes or whatever. But I just choose not to pursue that path.
It's never going to produce a free state.
I want to see. You know what? I don't know your format, so I don't want to get too ahead of myself, Shane. So sorry, go ahead.
No, we're off the format now. We're just talking. But I mean, but like for if Roger Ver and the Free Society Foundation, like I think this is a really good example that we can use to hammer down this point, because I don't think, I mean. I don't know.
Well, let me tell you where I'm at.
Okay, so even without going into the defensive portion, there's just a lack of understanding of history. Because if they would have read my article, or they would have read Erwin Strauss's book, or like any of the other country building projects of the past, then then I don't think they would have formatted this thing the way that they did. Like there's red flags everywhere. It's like you realize this has been tried before, and you realize you're having to trust the government not to take it over as soon as you send over the Bitcoin to their wallets. You like there's I don't think they've thought it through fully, and I haven't heard much in the past year or so. So I don't know. I don't know, but yeah, go ahead, Paul.
Oh well, I'm going to say something different than I was. You saw the example of the people that tried to feed the homeless and they get arrested, and the don't comply people, they went out and they fed the homeless open carrying.
Yep.
They didn't get arrested.
Right.
Yeah. There's
just say it.
Yeah, there's several articles out of Las Vegas about people like pulling over on the side of the road and handing out supplies to the homeless, and the police pulling up right behind them and giving them tickets.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't comply. Fed what, like 1,000 people, house them, give them clothing, give them some medical supplies, give them some other supplies and whatnot, and they didn't get fucked with at all. Why? Because they were open carrying.
Yeah, yeah.
Great point.
See, I'm like, to me, Shane, I'm like, if people are listening at this point and they still need sold, I'm not interested in trying to sell them anymore. I want to get into like ideas about how do these things happen?
All right,
like, let's talk ways. Let's talk solutions.
Okay, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. So before we started, you posited a question. Would be a good hypothetical to get into. You wanna do that? Kind of go about hypothetically how set one of these things up, or how to go about doing that.
Yeah. I don't know who wants to go first.
So why don't you present the thought example? Because I remember it 100%. I know it's something about the thought experiment you said before the show. You remember?
Thought experiment?
Okay, the
thought experiment is this. Okay, the thought experiment is this. Okay? Everybody, don't be frightened. Don't be afraid. Don't get Jimmy's rustled. Don't call your government and say, "Daddy, they're coming for us." Because this is just a mental exercise. What we're doing here is we're putting ourselves in a position.
Yeah.
If you want it to end the state, and I don't mean America, I mean the state, how would you do it? And without using, and this is the caveat, without using like just revolution, we're going to storm Capitol Hill and take, whatever, without that solution. And I'm not even interested in the debate right now about if that's possible. I'll just say I don't think it is, but you can prove me wrong somehow. But so for me, I think the important thing is in starting out. So a friend of, I don't know if I call him a friend, a scary person that I knew in Texas, I'll say that, once said to me, and this person was right about a lot of things, but really wrong about a lot of others. He said, if you don't have a badge, you have nothing. And he's right. What he meant was his goal was always to try to control a county, to get a hold of a county, to control all of the county seats, and to have a sheriff, and to know that you had that county. He wasn't thinking of it as a faux state because he wasn't an anarchist. He was a conservative, and I was a conservative. He's talking about creating a conservative enclave. But it's kind of the same thing. It's kind of now this would be one example of how you can create a faux state. I don't think there is any one example, but wherever the opportunity arises to fill a void, you take it. Like what we're talking about, wherever you see a large nation that's about ready to be broken up. Dude, if you have people there, you might have an opportunity to be one of those little states. You could win a county. You could win a town. So to speak. I'm there. But whatever all of these methods are, collectively, organically, collectively, and not in one big umbrella, but clusters working here and there, and then these clusters exchanging notes. We need to be developing our own technologies, our own military technologies. We need to develop all of our technologies that enable us to 3D print faster and more reliably, that enable us to combat drones with our own drones. We need high-tech development, and we also need high-tech sabotage, where we are going in and we are stealing. By we, I mean the imaginary group that's doing this, of course. We'd be stealing technology and exposing it and sharing it out throughout the whole world. If we don't have, and I don't know how it can emerge, but if we don't have, like, at some level, we have these larger scale cooperative exchanges of information development, groups working together in enterprises that are designed to raise funds, and then just be open to all the different unexpected ways that you might be able to step into a void and create a faux state. And on the outside, you might be that county might have like 3,000 people in it, and you've moved in 18,000 really hardcore U's, and now you have all the trappings. You have a public school, you have a sheriff's department, all that, but it doesn't do shit. It's just there so that nobody else can come in and put it in there. It's just a placeholder to keep somebody else out. You know, we have a mayor. What are you talking about? We have a mayor. Doesn't do shit, but we got a mayor, so don't try to select a mayor for it. That to me is the approach.
We have a mayor, but we elected a cat or a dog.
Whatever. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Elect a real person. Don't. I mean, try to look normal.
No mayor stubs. Okay.
No mayor stubs. No mayor stubs sets off alarms. That's a warning. Yeah, these people ain't taking this seriously. That's not right. You got a public school. How many people in your public school? 0.
Well,
I don't know. It's open.
You do see that too. Actually, the Republic of Sealand, one of the classic, the really popular, really well known kind of seasteads, and they have a king and a queen and a prince, crown prince and princess, and a knighthood. I'm a member, by the way. They're knighthood, but and a knighthood. So they have all those offices. They all exist. They have everything, and not that did them any good in 68 or 72 or anything, but
because they had no military.
Exactly, because they had no military, which is what actually that's when the knighthood was founded. Was in the wake of that, where they realized that they needed people that would be willing to show up and defend it should it need it again. But it took that incident for them to figure it out.
Yeah.
Right, and Paul, to speak to one of your points, so I watched this as a presentation. It was why can't I remember the convention? But it was called "How to Overthrow a Government." And obviously, the title of the presentation, I think there's just some really important gems in there that we could might be able to be utilized here. But what's that hacker? It's that biggest hacking convention in Las Vegas. DEF CON.
Yeah.
Yes, I love DEF CON.
So basically, and you're talking about technology and infrastructure and things. Like a great way, I'm trying to think of the best way to put this, but he walks through what was interesting about this, for Sedition, Subversion, and Sabotage, that terrific book. It was kind of all on the ground stuff, right? Like people on the ground doing things. Well, in this one, it's basically hackers just doing everything remotely. Making some transfers
Chris
from
Rock.
Chris Rock, okay. So maybe hacking into the Federal Reserve and money getting shifted around to fund various projects. Just all sorts of really really awesome stuff. Maybe somehow a leak somehow. I don't know, an audio recording gets fudged or faked, and it talks about some country invading another country, and it causes some problems. Or there are a lot of ways you could a lot of things you could kind of do with this sort of thing. But I would recommend that presentation, because I do think
I'll drop the link for that, Paulie, in the Telegram chat.
Okay.
But yeah, I think the technology is really. I think technology is really where it's at. If we can we can set up all of our own infrastructure, have all of our own technology, 3D printing, milling, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's really a huge step going forward.
The way that I see it, I see first and foremost. This is everybody. I'll bring up Jordan Peterson. Everybody. Jordan Peterson's, clean your room. Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that. But it's hard. Jordan Peterson is not the frickin' rocket scientist that said that first. I just want to let you know. I think we've all probably said that form in many versions. The principle is that take care of your own stuff first. And in this case, I call it it's the disentangling. You have to I'm in transition, and I don't know how long it'll take. God willing, have a few good things happen. It'll speed up, but it's disentangling as much as you can. And so you want to lower your monetary input as much as possible. You want to find people that are willing to barter, trade. You want to find people. I don't even have this network. I don't know. I want to find people that are that will actually buy stuff from you using crypto, and you from them, like you're going to buy their products and services. They're going to buy and you're going to use something like Monero, like a anonymous currency. Try to get your monetary, whatever value you need to exchange, try to get that out of that system as much as possible.
A digital second realm,
the digital second round, but also, grow your own food, learn, make sure you got your own weapons, make sure you know how to use them, make sure you, make yourself be the self-sustaining the autonomous person that you want to be. And then these individuals and also individual like in transition, we're networking and we're exchanging notes, and maybe through the course of that we're forming businesses together. We're forming think tanks, especially think tanks. We're really in a lot of fucking think tanks. Sorry, I don't know if I can drop F-bombs. But we need a lot of think tanks. We need a lot of note sharing and people, but we need to do almost all of this stuff except for the kind of stuff that we want to show out to the world is like the demonstrable stuff that shows, oh, you guys are dealing with your medical bills, and I'm part of a network of a cooperative over here.
Vice has a really good article about a underground anarchist pharmacy creating their own EpiPens and other things just similar to that.
I mean, a lot of what I'm saying is it's already happening, but it's not really being shared amongst our kind, so to speak, all that regularly, and we're not networking with one another. And heaven forfend, you say we cooperate, and then you say it's collective, and then all that, and whatever.
Herding cats.
I mean, don't get me wrong. If somebody shows up with some monolithic flag and says, everybody come here, fuck you. No. But I mean, there's a lot of stuff that can happen. Like and there is even some things that can happen, dare I say it, amongst the left and right anarchists together. There is research and development that they can do together. There is. And I really think the most important thing, I've been using this battle to the sea metaphor too often, but I'm going to use it again. The battle of the sea. I know Andrew knows the World War I. They're battling to the sea towards, was it Luxembourg or Belgium? Which one of those? But anyway, they're trying to outflank each other. And that's what's going on in tech. Right now, people like you and I, we want to, tech is right now, actually, tech is in our favor. If they don't control the tech, if they don't filter it, if they don't throttle it down with their IPs and all that crap, tech is in our favor. The balance of power is heavily towards the defensive right now. The balance of power is heavily towards the individual, towards autonomy, towards self-rule, towards self-sustainability. I mean, the technology is there. It is going to be, I believe, very soon that a small local factory will be far more efficient than the mega factories. Than a small local farm using a combination of hydroponics, aquaponics, whatever, all the combinations will be more effective per acre than these big industrial farms. That actually small scale might start to become more efficient. And if a small scale becomes efficient, large scale is fucked. And they know it. And they're in a race of time to get to that end where they put their finger in the dike. And that's why we need to be aggressive in that arms race, that R&D arms race.
Yeah. To piggyback on Paul real quick, Jordan Peterson, there's another really good quote for him, and it absolutely applies in this situation. And it says, a peaceful man is not a good man. A good man is a dangerous man that has that under voluntary control.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
sure.
I'd agree. But I was gonna say, what you're talking about there, Paul, and I think the idea of the second realm and building those could be a very, very good first step. Before maybe a faux state, just second realms in general, where
absolutely. In order for you to have a faux state, you have to have the infrastructure and you have to have the faux state people. Because if you start a faux state and it's filled with staters, guess what? It's going to be a state.
Yes, exactly.
So we need faux staters.
Right. So yeah, getting the the internal dispute resolution things figured out, how to conduct trade anonymously if people desire to, how to do all of these things. I mean, these have to be field tested first. And I think the idea of second realms, whether they're permanent or temporary or whatever, I think they're absolutely necessary. I mean, it's a step in the direction. It's like homesteading to seasteading to space steading. It's just kind of like, and obviously this one of those is more realistic than the other. But you get what I'm saying. I think it's a logical step in the right direction. And I think speaking to Rojava, and I haven't done too much research into it, but it kind of sounds like they've been developing for quite some time. Like this wasn't something that's new. They've been out there building for a long time, and that's why they've been able to sustain themselves.
Yeah, they've been. Oh, I forget the name of their guy, but they're actually kind of Murray Bookchin kind of. They've kind of taken a lot of Murray Bookchin's ideas. That
was the Democratic Confederalism,
or
right?
Something.
Democratic Confederalism.
Yeah, Democratic Confederalism or direct democracy, consensual direct democracy. But they've been developing these theories and they've been living this governance before Rojava. There's these groups of people in this region that were before there was the faux state of Rojava, there were faux staters, and they had just like you said, they tested it out real good because when you actually build an actual market and you test out the theories, that's when you find out, all of those nap conversations will go away real quick. It'll just kind of make itself apparent.
And Rojava has, and I don't. This word's really overused nowadays, and it has negative incantations attached to it. But Rojava has a culture of freedom. They have a culture of resistance to outside coercive forces.
I think
they have a
culture.
Yeah.
Yes. They have no state leader sitting in the center of their soul. Everybody else does.
Yeah, and that's something that they were brought up in. That's something that they live. That's something that they were taught. That's something that philosophically is ingrained in them. Like they are willing to fight and to defend this culture of freedom that they have, and that's something that most people don't have. They don't have the philosophical ideology of freedom. They don't have the desire to truly be free. They have the desire to be free according to their conditions.
I believe that most people in America, I don't care what the polls say, most people in America fundamentally think they're free. I believe that the reason that they think they're free is because they have developed a habit of living that does not go outside of that little freedom box that the government has put them in. And if you don't, like for me, even if I didn't care about politics, I didn't care about history, I didn't care about my people that'll come after me, or all I really wanted to do was just fucking die. I can fucking die in America pretty easily and be happy. This gives me plenty of room to do that.
As long as there's enough grass in there, as long as there's enough room in the cage. As long as
right. I'm not saying it'll always be like that, but right now it is like that. I can fucking die in America, but if I want to do more than fuck and die, then I start to notice, holy crap. I mean, it was really, I tell you where I really started to notice like how unfree we really are is when I started a business.
Oh yeah.
That'll sober you up.
Yeah.
But it was once I needed that. Before, all I did was I wrote poetry and art, and I sent my poems to poetry magazines, and I ran a poetry magazine, and there was nothing that was challenging me. I wasn't even interested in guns. I didn't care about any of that stuff, man. So I was free. I was totally free because nothing that I was doing was conflicting with them. And they've really done a great job in docilizing us and creating more let's just fucking dies.
Yeah, to name drop real quick, seditious subversion, sabotage, field man number 1. Ben says, currently there's a thriving market demand for the state. Most people don't understand the alternatives, nor can they imagine a world without monopolized aggression. People tend to be loyal to brand-specific products, and the state is that brand. Mother trusted it, the brand Grandpa fought for during the war, and the only brand they've heard about on television. Most people have very little exposure to the violent and bloody monster that is hidden under the surface of every encounter with government agents.
Yeah. I mean, here I am with my brand. I mean, I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fan because that became my brand early on.
Yeah,
and now I love the Eagles.
As long as the outside of the cage is big enough that you never run into the bars,
right?
You don't notice that you're in a cage.
Yeah, right.
So they just built it in just the right way that the majority of people never quite run into those bars. They might see them, but they never quite actually encounter them. So to them, well, I have all the room I need. I'm fine.
Yeah,
I don't need anything else.
Would you call it a culture of voluntary servitude?
Yeah.
Yeah, you could certainly call it that. Yeah, but I mean, it's weird. It's kind of an oxymoron to say voluntary servitude, but it's I get the point.
Yeah.
I think I get it. I think I get it. I'm pretty sure, but yeah, that's where we're at. And see, what happens is, well, one of the ways that John Adams was like an instigator, and he really wanted a Revolutionary War, so he pushed by not John Adams, Samuel Adams, sorry. So he pushed his people to basically to challenge the laws that the British passed and force the British to do asshole things. And that's the general principle. Force them to do asshole things. But only when you know that you have a network behind you that when they show up to do asshole things, your network also shows up. See, that's the key. If you force them to do asshole things and you don't have the network to support you, then you're fucked. So go ahead.
You're mad with power. Have you ever gone mad without power? It's boring.
It's totally boring. Yes. But so I you know, we can as people start to experience, like, they're going to come to you. They're going to look at you, Jason. You're not, your statey friends are going to see, like, if you're part of a network that really enables you to be self-sustaining, because we need a network to buy and sell from as much as possible so we can reduce our monetary imprint in this fucking world. If you have that and people see, like, they're struggling and you're like, you're doing good, and they're going to be like, dude, how are you doing that? I went in, and you're okay. Well, you know, it's a buying network. That buying network is going to be open to anyone. It's not going to be like anarchist only. I mean, how the hell would you enforce that anyway? But you know, and then they're going to start to experience what it means to be outside the box, and then the state's going to come up and say, "What the hell are you doing?" But when they say, "What the hell are you doing?" hopefully by that point, that guy's going to be like, "Network," and then the state's going, "Oh shit, we can't. We if we challenge him right now, people are going to know we have nothing." And then but it's not too much of a challenge, so we give you a little.
Yeah, they've already, the state's already done that. Look at the number of regulations regarding farmers markets.
Yeah,
and the number of laws and regulations regarding cottage food laws. Like we had a lady here in California that lives in Stockton, about half an hour from me.
You're echoing.
Oh
no, you're not. Go ahead, sorry.
We had a lady here in California, in Stockton, about half an hour from me. She was arrested for advertising on Facebook, selling tamales.
I saw that.
And like,
see, if that happens to someone in one of these networks, and I don't want to say the network because it'd be really stupid to have the network. That was another thing that guy from Texas said that was totally right. The whack-a-mole approach. You don't want to have one head. You have to have multiple heads. So they go. So multiple networks. But if you have multiple networks, if they're part of one of those networks and they're selling tamales on Facebook, and then the government shows up to try to enforce that, the network shows up and like just going to stand there and say, "Hey, you got to go through us," kind of, and you're open carrying. You know.
Do you really want this to go down over tamales?
That's what I'm talking about.
I don't think so. But I wanted to bring up two examples. You were talking about how
they will not show up. They won't show up. Trust me, they will not show up. They won't. They'll be like, "Well,
if you're not willing to defend yourself from getting thrown in a cage over tamales. I mean,
oh well, no, I do believe in being strategic. I could see myself not. I could see myself paying the tamale fine. I would not pay the tamale fine if I knew I had a network of badasses to support me. Then I might not. But right now, like I pay my taxes. I pay my taxes. I pay the government.
Do you pay your taxes, or is the money stolen from you before you receive it?
No, I have to send in my school taxes, and that's what I'm talking about. I pay my taxes, and I pay the school over $4,000+ a year just on school taxes. I pay more than that in other ways, but I pay my school to teach my daughter that government is good. Now, fortunately, this year my daughter finally chose to come home, and now she's being unschooled. But you know, because I was peaceful parenting, but still, I'm literally paying the government to teach my daughter to hate me. That's pretty cool. And Jason, I do that because I really don't want to die, and I think that I probably wouldn't. I'm willing at this point to sacrifice that to not be in prison and to not die. Sure. At the present moment in time, my line isn't there yet.
That's something that I actually, my girlfriend and we actually had that discussion a little while ago. As far as when is it the point where you go, okay, I'm gonna have to be that guy. I'm gonna have to be that guy that's gonna have to die. That's gonna have to be the first one to get shot. I'm gonna have to be the Crispus Attucks of the True Liberty movement, and I'm gonna have to do this. And you know, and I was telling her, I said, you know, the sad thing is what I'm seeing as time's going on here, increasingly, I suspect it's going to be me. And, like, that pisses me off. Like, I shouldn't have to be that guy. Like, somebody else should have to be. But you know what?
Well, you don't have to be. No, that's
if you're not willing to do it, though.
Your choice. It's your choice.
Well, of course it's my choice, but I see it as an inevitable choice. It's one that I have to make. It's one that I was always going to make.
There's going to be a line. There's going to be a line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's going
have
to
a
be
line.
something.
I mean, I have a line. I think you never know until you know. Andrew, you know more because you faced it, but I haven't. So I don't know until I know. But my line, it may be before this, but I don't think so. You knock on my door and you ask for my gun. That's the end of the conversation. I know at that point, the jig is up, son. You got no choice at that point. Yeah. I am not handing over my guns. I'll tell you that.
California,
at least I don't think I will.
California hasn't gone to the point of confiscating guns. Instead, they're making you do background checks.
They have confiscated guns. They have red flag teams that go around and confiscate guns.
And we've had red flag laws for a while. But I mean,
do they not? Are you saying they don't aggressively pursue that?
Oh, they absolutely do aggressively pursue that.
Oh,
but in addition to that, now we have to do, starting January 1st, we have to do background checks to get ammunition.
That's great. That's California. That's that political reality. That's all that is. Just that political reality.
It's the culture of California. Unfortunately, I was going to speak to another important role that the second realm plays, and we kind of talked about with you got to get the Faux status before you can actually get the Faux state, but and also in line with that as well. That's people never get to the edge of the cage, right? They never get to the edge of the cage. They don't really know what freedom lies beyond that. And two examples come to mind. One more of kind of a mainstream one, and then one a fictional example. The first one being like if you've ever gone to a gun show, like that's a heck of a place to be. It's a heck of a place. Like, oh my gosh, look at all these guns, look at all these accessories. Holy shit! Like, this is cool. And then the second example is Aurora from Alongside Night. Just imagine going into that building, from being a statist, going into that building and seeing nuclear weapons for sale and seeing all the drugs you can get and gold and silver, no fiat, like just seeing all of this stuff and like people are fine here, nothing bad is happening. Whoa, where have I been the past however many years? So I think the second realm can really provide that. And again, I recommend #Agora and a Lodging of Wayfaring Men to get more examples of how these things look. But I mean, just introducing people into that, very slowly, going, kind of, and I think freedom festivals are good for this. Those are second realms. People who've only associated with anarchists online for so long, they go to one of these festivals, and it's a pretty it's a life changing experience. I don't think that's hyperbole at all. It's a life changing experience. And then I think the goal from that is to get people in second realms more often, whether that's temporary autonomous. Sounds like maybe they pursue van nomadism and then associate with other van-anarchists or whatever it may be. I really think that's I think that's kind of a really great way that the second realm can be used in pursuance of kind of a faux state. And we're talking about the same thing. We're talking about second realm, only this goes even further than Smuggler and XYZ went with it. That not only is it going to be a second realm, but to the outside, it's going to look like a state, and that's, I think, a pretty. It's an interesting. It's a pretty interesting and valuable addition, I think, and something I really haven't thought of before.
Yeah, and for me personally, when I look at, how the Aztecs came to be, the Aztecs, Teotihuacan, whatever it's called, it's a similar story. There's a whole bunch of city-states, in this case, surrounding this big-ass lake, and the city-states just go through 100 or so odd years of fighting each other for supremacy until eventually the Teotihuacan gets its ascendancy, and it's all just a question of this is the really provocative statement that I want to make to anarchists out there. Basically, whatever sociocultural reality you create, if it does not create the conditions for which an effective military can thrive, you have the technology, you have the people, you have the strategies, and they're constantly developing, then you don't exist. I'm just going to say it. So whatever sociocultural realities you're talking about, if military isn't part of it, you're not creating anything. But the only kind of world where you can exist might be on fucking Antarctica, as long as it's someplace where there isn't oil. But good luck.
Right, and also too,
I don't want to sound bitchy though.
No, I agree. I would add one other thing in that in this transitional phase, I think it's important, or I think C-setting could play a role in that, or maybe not C-setting in particular, but maybe some sort of a and we've talked about this before, Jason, like have an aircraft carrier in international waters that has medical research stations, maybe a military development sort of thing out there that you wouldn't talk about because you may be in international waters without any governments, but if you're advertising that you're doing that sort of thing, that's probably one of the reasons they would come after you. But for medical research and things like that, you might be okay, and plus you can just move. But I think that could
private security
right.
for services, developing private security technologies.
Yes, exactly. Protection services.
And don't call it that. Please don't call it that. Just private, but make sure, if you can, as much as possible, make sure that you're not just doing business with anarchists. Like if you're private security service,
the business wouldn't survive. It was only anarchists. It wouldn't survive.
What's that?
The business wouldn't survive.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, but it needs to look like legitimate businesses. And they need to actually be legitimate businesses. And some of these businesses are like, I'm looking, if PG Newser starts to happen, I'm going to be looking. I want to build like a cooperative business. I don't want to be the owner. I want to have a consensual cooperative. I call it my brother and I we use this phrase participatory ownership business model. If that thing took off, that thing would definitely be part of the just say Wild Fantasy. If this thing was selling like 1 million whatevers, I mean, there's a lot of money that would be filtered to projects for other people.
That's exactly what I'm doing with Liberty Under Attack publications, only I just said open sourcing it, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's not really open source, but that sounds more like what I'm trying to do with LEO publications. So it sounds like we're on the same wavelength here of how do we not only improve my own situation, but how can I improve others, others too, where we can have hopefully someday have some sort of a place where money can be funneled to various projects, because that's one of the main hurdles right now is money. Like with Marinea, I guess the main reason that didn't pan out was the guy spent 2 years funding out of pocket and also couldn't get the $10 million to initially start it. And then with other things too, there are a lot of really awesome things a lot of awesome projects that I could see being successful, but they cost money. They cost a lot of money. So I think that's important.
Yeah, I mean, and that has to be part of the strategies. Let's take multiple paths, but if I'm looking to create a business that provides a service to statists that also kind of gets the camel's nose under the tent. And I like that model. I like other folks trying to do, and even Shane, to some degree, what you're doing. I'm sure that you're going to be creating some content for statists, right? Some mainstream content, I'm hoping. Just nudging, just a little suggestion.
It is
that's where the money is.
It is LUA publications. It's not Anarchist publications. Something there's an Anarchist symbol in the logo, but it's
well, you got Liberty under attack. You'll get the conservatives. Sell to some conservatives, dude. You can do it. Conservatives will get you money. They got some money, dude.
Ammon money's a hot topic right now. Just saying.
Yeah,
Ammon money. Yeah, I'm just saying. Andrew, what you're doing with your tactical, I know you're going to be, you have to because you won't exist. You had to serve the status, dude. And while you're serving the status, you're just planting those little self-reliance, self-sustainability, self-preserving bombs. In this case, metaphor.
Yeah, that's exactly it too. That's the idea with Iron Harvest. Is the whole point is that, I mean, because I would love to be able to just weaponry train anarchists. That would be phenomenal. I would love to just do that. But I'm not going to make enough money. There's not a large enough customer base there for me to make any money doing it, to even sustain the business, even if I'm just doing it as a side thing and still working a 9 to 5. There's just not enough people in the anarchist movement who can afford the costs for the training, who can afford the materials, who have a location, any of that stuff. And there's not enough of them with enough interest. But there are plenty of people out there who are already leaning that direction, who are already, they're homesteaders, they're sovereign citizens, they're whoever, who are still statist, but are already looking at, well, but how do I defend myself?
Okay, Andrew,
how do I worry about me?
I think
that's the thing.
You could use your
and I think that's a good thing. Worry about yourself first.
Right. Okay.
Sorry.
That's fine. I think the Constitutionalists would be a major target audience for you, because back in the 90s they used to run around with guns in the woods and stuff a lot. I mean, they used to do that a lot. I don't know if they do that much anymore. The militiaism was obviously more booming back then, but I think you could provide a very, very valuable service and also get them back to their ideology, because they used to be very good. They used to be very good back when I used to associate with them, but that was until Dolan came into the picture, and then they just stopped doing everything cool and just started worshiping the state again. But I think that could be a very valuable thing. I really do.
One thing I love about Donald Trump, and I know, and you're complaining about the constitutionalists not being constitutionalists, which I get. I like it though. I really like it a lot. I really love that Donald Trump has come in and pretty much put almost all the conservatives in a position of not really being able to stand on the Constitution anymore. I mean, it's incredibly. And see, they got to make so many excuses now. It's wonderful. It's like, dude, I told you, it's just a piece of.
Yeah, and let me specify further. It's not really about the document itself. What I appreciate about these folks is they didn't politically say at that time. Maybe they might have done it locally, but they didn't care about federal elections. But they were trying to set up committees of safety, and they were doing security teams, all sort of like really cool direct action in line with their ideology. But like
Sagebrush Rebellion. That's another good one from them in the 70s and 80s, early 90s.
What's the Sagebrush Rebellion?
Sagebrush Rebellion was a movement to push out the federal control of local lands. The EPA, the BLM, National Forest, things like that, and to return it back to either state control, local control, letting ranchers be ranchers and not be overregulated with the environmental regulations.
Another example we were talking about earlier, the Malheur Wildlife Refuge occupation. Do you think the feds would have gone in there and taken them out if they weren't carrying rifles? I bet they would have.
Absolutely.
Oh, of course.
So
it would have been slaughter.
Yeah, I mean, you can make fun of the snacks, but they were armed. They understood that part.
Look at the government's reaction, but the difference in government reaction between the Malheur Wildlife Refuge occupation and Occupy Wall Street.
Oh yeah, that's
right.
Yep.
What happened in Occupy Wall Street? I'm not aware of. I mean, I know about Occupy Wall Street. I'm just not sure.
Occupy Wall Street. The government's reaction when they would take over public buildings or
when they
like
chased them out and battered them out.
Chased them out, beat them. The famous video of the people sitting on the ground at UC Davis and the cop walking by and pepper spraying all of them.
Lou created an awesome meme for that.
That guy the cop that pepper sprayed those people, he's actually collecting disability for PTSD.
I saw that.
Yeah.
That's the world you live in. Yeah, that's the world you live in, folks. Because it's traumatizing spraying college kids in the face, and then weird when people were mad about it.
Man, I can only imagine the kind of traumatizing experience Kent State was. I mean, to those poor National Guardsmen there.
Yeah,
it's just be.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah, Kent State unarmed.
Yep.
There you go.
Yeah. So even in this. Sorry. I was going to say, so even in the status paradigm, where governments, bludgies, love to kill and beat citizens, kill and beat slaves, love it, absolutely love doing it. Even just the mere appearance of a firearm, don't even have to aim it or pull it up or anything. You just have to have it, and it's a lot of times it's enough to deter that coercion that probably would have happened if it wasn't there. So,
right.
I mean. It's a pretty powerful thing.
Don't kid yourselves.
And if we're I mean, obviously, like that's a very, very small scale individual basis sort of thing. But when we go out larger with it, I mean, I guess one counter example to this would be Waco, right? I mean, they had a lot of guns there.
They had guns, but they weren't. But that's different. They weren't being employed correctly. They had them, but they weren't entirely willing to use them. Right. Which is number one, and the thing is remember look at your average traffic stop, right? If there's a traffic stop, does one cop usually, if he's got to search the car, is it one cop that pulls the person out? No, you have 5, 6, 8 squad cars. Why? Because it's an immediate escalation of force from their side, which automatically puts you on a back foot and makes you go, oh crap. Like, there's so much, I can't even begin to fight back against this.
Right. The
problem is individuals need to be willing to employ exactly that strategy because it fucking works, right? If a guy goes, I'm going to punch you in the face, and I pull a gun out of my pocket, he's going to go, oh, shit. And he's not even going to go for his own gun in 9 times out of 10 because you already have the drop on him. You already have that escalation of force on your side. You have taken the initiative in that engagement already. You seized it. It's yours. So if you're willing to do the same thing in any other engagement with the state where you are willing to go, oh, you're going to show up with 3 cops with guns? That's funny because I have a rocket launcher. Or, oh, you're going to show up like... I'm sorry, but rock, paper, scissors, AT4. Guess which one is going to win that? And it's pretty obvious, like, oh, so you have an armored car, you have an LAV, you have a Bearcat. Well, that's nice, except that I have an anti-tank rocket launcher, and I'm going to blow it up. And so now all of a sudden I've taken that initiative back, and now they're going to go, well, I'm not going to use the truck because he's just going to blow it up. So there's no point in me even trying. And then engagement immediately backs down because now the people who think they should have the initiative, they've lost it. Because all of a sudden you can come back at them.
And if they start to understand that that's the reality, then when they look and they see that headlight out in front of them or that tail light out in front of them, and they look and they see like, is this one of these folks? Oh, fuck no, man. I just want to go home tonight. You know, I mean, really, that's what I hear from cops. I just want to go home tonight. Okay.
Right, and also too, so along that same line, that line of thought, in second book on strategy, there's talk of, and you know, technology is enabling this, where you can have, you know, anonymized defense systems and anonymized security systems and things like that, or not anonymized, but automated, where they can be controlled from a remote location. So like this, so people, you know, like these. So I guess to provide an example, if a second realm is being raided or something along those lines, well, obviously there's you know, there's some force being exerted, you know, breaking into the facility or wherever it is, and the counter escalation of force to a higher level is, well, we've got automatic turrets, so they're probably going to back away pretty quickly and probably rethink their decision to raid the building. Right? So technology also enables this and makes it safer. And going back to the How to Overthrow a Government by presentation by Chris Rock at DEF CON, a lot of this stuff, you know, a lot of these things can probably be done remotely, without that force even reaching, you know, the second realm or the Faux state. Because if you can you know, I can use that word.
Optimally, you want to avoid that. Yeah.
Sure. But yeah, you know, like they're.
I mean, optimally. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I mean, optimally, we all want to see. I mean, what I want to see is just I want to see this slow, organic flow of these little havens that form. Whether it's a neighborhood size, because it could be as small as a neighborhood. You could have a neighborhood and be a Faux state at the neighborhood level.
Oh.
You can have your own little neighborhood council, whatever the hell. But you could have a county. There could be Rojava, but the fundamental thing is you have to have people who want to actually be self-sustaining, who and who understand, if you want to be self-sustaining, if you want to have a more you-directed life, you need to have a network of you-directed people to also help you, because you can't buy from yourself. And you would prefer not to buy from Amazon. I'm not saying I'm anti-corporation or anything. I'm saying Amazon is fully entangled with the state. All of these corporations are fully entangled with the state. So wherever, I don't want to do business with those guys right now. I don't have a choice. Well, I have a choice, but my comfort level that I choose to live with right now, because of, you know, my white privilege, I choose to not have a choice at this present moment in time. But I would like to and believe me, I've actually sacrificed my comfort in a lot of ways recently, because we are cutting down on monetary input. But I'm as low as I'm going to go right now. So I want to have that comfort level, but I want to buy from Anarchist, and I want to buy using Monero. I want Andrew to send me my next gun. You know, not that you sell guns, but I mean, you know, just.
I would never do anything.
No,
like
it would.
That,
no,
ever.
it would be done.
I
It would be done legal. I'm just talking about, you know, you would get your FFLs and everything. You know, no, man.
Andrew's a terrible boat driver.
Oh,
terrible.
God,
that's true. I was on a few trips with him, and I want to say he owes me a lot, because I lost a lot of guns.
All gone.
So I do want to go ahead and mention, it looks like we've got a couple patrons actually tuning in here. Liberty Cats, thanks for joining us. Are you being detained? No, not by us, but we'd like you to stick around and keep listening. But yeah, welcome. That's good to see a couple people watching live. I'm never really sure, because I don't know if Patreon. I know Patreon sends out notifications to phones, but I don't know how reliable the notification system is. But anyway, good to see you guys here. Not to derail the conversation, but no, I'm right there with you. I have obviously support that counter economy, that Agora, and again, that's another role this second realm can play as an intermediate step towards you know, the Faux state sort of thing. So
yeah. Well, what happens in this second realm is what you were talking about, Shane, where you're testing. You know, we're going to interact with one another, and we're going to piss each other off, and we're really going to have to figure out conflict resolution without using the state. So I think we're going to come up with some interesting solution.
Refer back to that episode that we did, Jason, with Henza, talking about the problems with anarchists.
Responsibility of freedom.
Yeah,
right.
All the stuff that's going on in Acapulco right now. I mean, that's there's obviously the conference stuff, and I'm sure you guys have seen some of the videos come out.
Oh, that's right. You're right. Then, you're in that world.
And then the community itself now, like there are two separate anarchist communities, basically in Acapulco. So I mean that's I guess that is kind of a one field test. It's going it's Patreon only. It's not going very well right now, but you live and you learn, right? So I mean the community down there is finding out things that they didn't know they'd have to deal with. They didn't envision anarchists who abide by the NAP committing fraud and coercion. They didn't it wasn't something they thought would be a problem. And now it is. And I mean just there was no there's obviously the theoretical stuff, the theoretical dispute resolution stuff, but how do you deal with that in reality? Not really
without bringing in the state, because now you're talking about real wealth being taken here, real resources being taken. So something's got to go. Something's got to happen.
Basically, the enforcement is ostracism and disassociation. And it is a powerful thing. It definitely is a powerful thing. So much so that I even heard the term something about ostracism being coercion or something along those lines. Like it's
God,
it's not, but like it's a tool that should not be misused, I guess is the point. That's kind of what they're left with.
And I think we're seeing it's a difficult tool to actually deploy, because I'm not going to mention names, but I think we all know who we're talking about. That individual and the other individual on the side of it, both of them in that current crosstalk. Both of them. What was I saying? I started out saying I got enamored with Jason's smoke there. That was nice. Distracted me, but they're what do they bring? They bring charisma, and they have followings, and when people have tried to ostracize them, it hasn't worked because they have huge followings. So ostracism is really difficult to deploy with people who have followings. If you don't have a following, now the sad side of that also is if you don't have a following, you could be ostracized, quote unquote. I'll use this term because it's relative, unjustly. So, but still, ostracism is difficult to deploy with charismatic folks who have followings.
That's because most anarchists and libertarians aren't actually anarchists and libertarians. They're statists that traded political parties for the great man fallacy in economic systems.
I would prefer to think that they're anarchists that have state vestigials that they have not fully confronted. I have my own state
exercise their collectivist
spooks. The collectivist spooks.
Yeah, the collectivist spooks are still there. I still got them. I still every once in a while knee jerk, say something totally states. And I don't even think about it. And sometimes I say it over and over again before I figure it out. So I don't know. Although I do think there are plenty of I do think that there were plenty of conservatives that came over to anarchy in 2012 after Obama won for the second time. And I don't think they were ever anarchists. It was just like, our team is losing. We'll never win again. I got to get on a team in which winning isn't relative. I don't have to worry about winning or losing anymore.
Bandwagon libertarians.
Yeah, whatever. And then they came in.
As a Philly fan, you know nothing about that.
As a Philly fan, I know more than you know. Probably about suffering, because you're a Giants fan. So I know about suffering. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if ostracism is. I think it has to be more than ostracism. If somebody is. If they commit fraud against the community and this network, in one of these networks, I think there has to be more than ostracism, but I don't know what that would look like. I have a feeling, though, someone's going to figure it out.
Yeah, no,
There's
I
probably going to be
agree.
a couple people that do some boneheaded things and like, no, that's not it. And then somebody will do like, that's it. We don't even know technologically all the ways that we can get each other if we need to. That's
Right.
kind of fun to know.
Right. So Liberty Cat says, I need a boat ride in 90 days when bump stocks are banned, by the way. So, hey, I think there'll be plenty of people. I think there'll be plenty of people on that boat with you. Let's see.
Yeah. Who the heck would buy a bump stock anyway? It's stupid.
Well, yeah, they're kind. I mean, and the bump stocks have always been kind of dumb and useless.
Everybody knows they're dumb.
The binary triggers are also, and actually the binary triggers are really hard to use because I had the tendency, because I pull the trigger so fast, that my hammer would follow the bolt home. If anybody doesn't know what a binary trigger is, it fires both on the pull and the release.
Yeah.
So you go pop, pop, pop,
so
pop, pop,
I was actually thinking that there was. I've seen the YouTube videos. I was like, I was actually sold on the binary trigger. Now you're telling me I'm wrong. That's sad.
Yeah, the problem is that you have to regulate your fire, because otherwise, what will happen is, as that bolt comes forward, you're releasing the trigger, and now the hammer just rides the bolt all the way in and does not strike the firing pin hard enough to detonate the primer. So you never fire, and then it stops, and then you got to clear a live round and then try again. And if you can find that rhythm, it's great on a range. But if you're in an actual firefight, do you really want to have to go, well, I can only fire so fast or it's not going to work anymore? Like, no, drill the third frickin' hole, find a drop-in auto sear, drop the fucker in, and rock and roll. All right? Just do that. And
or use a belt loop. Use a belt loop.
Yeah, use your belt loop. I don't, for the love of God, something, but just don't do the bump stock thing. Don't do the binary trigger. I'm a huge fan of, just completely disregarding gun laws. It's just disregard them.
And
if enough people disregard, what are they going to do about it? They're going to come at us? We have machine guns.
Yeah. And I'm a huge fan of, hey, everybody, stop trying to beg the state to rescind these laws. Just tell them fuck you, and if people keep saying fuck you over and over again, they're gonna. It's like when Roosevelt tried to do price controls. It worked in the beginning, and then after a while, people were like, "Oh, this sucks." They send the price control guy around to figure out what the prices were. The guys were getting their asses kicked, like getting torn up. After a while, it just kind of disappeared. Yeah, that's what'll happen. The government ain't stupid. I mean, well, they are stupid, but they're not that stupid. They understand that if they're going to continue to show to the world that they are feckless, that it's bad for them. So they would rather not show up for the occasion that will show them to be feckless. Oh, well, you know what?
You mean like when they stopped enforcing prohibition taxes?
Yep.
Yeah, that happened soon after. It didn't happen. It wasn't long before that stopped because nobody was going to enforce it. Nobody.
Nope.
It was only in the cities where you had some enforcement, some showy enforcement.
Hashtag make tax collectors birds again.
Exactly.
That's why they passed the amendment. That's why they passed the amendment, because it was like, dude, they're figuring out we got nothing. If they really don't want it, we can't tell them. We can't stop them.
Well, and that's that, and that's that plays into asymmetric warfare and into guerrilla warfare, and which is, with my background, that's something that we're really big on, right? That's what we learn how to do. That's what we teach people how to do. How do you run a war asymmetrically? And war doesn't have to be a violent war. It can just as easily be a war of funds, a war of resources, by moving things around, shuffling things around. Remember, right now, the state's bigger than you. They are. There's just no way around it. They are bigger than you, and they are way more willing to kill you than you are to kill them. In most cases, not mine, but most people. So I love killing things. All right, I just do. But like people need to remember that you can't just hit them head on. But also don't forget that all of those orders, all of those edicts, all those things are carried out by a single person or by a very small group of people. You don't have to take on the entire state at once. You take on the little battles, you hit and you run. So get rid of this law effectively by disregarding it. And then this law you can't completely disregard, but you can make everybody terrified to enforce it. And so you can get rid of that one and go and pick away. I mean, you saw that in Ireland in 1916 with the Irish War for Independence, where it wasn't about trying to hit, because there was no way, even with Britain engaged in a major land war across the Channel, they were still an enormous military power. So trying to get rid of them after 800 years of occupation isn't really something that you can do all at once, but you can start making it impossible for them to govern because no one will do the governing for them anymore and effectively render them impotent because no one will carry out the orders, right? If Hitler didn't have a bunch of people willing to carry out violence for him, he's just a crazy dude in a beer hall. So that's not a dictator anymore, right? He's just this crazy dude yelling and screaming about the Jews in a beer hall, and that's all that ever happens. It wasn't until people were willing to engage in violence on his behalf. So you just got to make people unwilling to do that. And that just requires violence right back.
That's something that we talked about on the episode of Liberty Under Attack, Building the Second Realm series with Ben and I on with Shane. Making the enforcement of arbitrary edicts or making the enforcement of laws regarding victimless crimes, making the cost of doing so greater than what the state would get out of the person being in jail. And Ben went on some really good examples about harassment and told this really cool story about some district attorney
messing with the district attorney's law, like just something very,
messing with the district attorney's law and like
I remember
have the district attorney go to work and then show up at his house and call a landscaping company, and the landscaping company comes out and you go, "Oh, I'm the district attorney, blah blah blah. I want to surprise my wife with a new garden or whatever. I need you to remove all the sod and trees and plants from the front yard." and they believe you because you're standing in front of the district attorney's house. I got to go to work now. You guys have it done by the end of the day, and then you leave, and the district attorney comes home. And his entire front yard is naked, and then you get a note to the district attorney and be like, "Oh, this is going to continue until you release so and so, blah 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 blah." Like, and that's like,
and see,
low on the totem pole of escalation of force that you could use to make the enforcement of these arbitrary edicts.
Yeah, and I would say, the other thing is doxing. You should be all government employees should be doxed. Pretty much, theoretically, within our, not that I would do that because I'm a decent human being, but especially, the people that are the ones with the guns, we should know where they live and they should be held accountable. Like, even if held accountable is you show up and you just park on front of their lawn and just play Led Zeppelin. Well, no, Led Zeppelin's cool. Rick Astley.
Five-finger dispatch.
Hey.
Okay, we'll do that. What the heck? No. We'll stick with Rick Astley. That's always your go-to trash.
Tiny Tim.
Tiny Tim, put him in there. That's good. That's good. But they should not feel like they are invisible anymore. That's the thing. That's their protection. What they want most is to make sure we're not anonymous, and they want to be anonymous. We need to know, who are these regulators. I want to know where they live. I want to know why Bob Wilson wrote this fucking line in here. Bob Wilson, why the fuck did you write this line in here? This fucks me up and I don't like it. You better fucking change it, Bob Smith. Not fucking government, Bob fucking Smith. We need to be able to say Bob Smith more often. The more we say Bob Smith, the harder it's going to be. And the less, even police, they're having hard times finding police. It's going to be harder and harder finding government employees if they know that an asshole like me is going to call out Bob Smith.
Well, that's
but we don't know who Bob Smith is.
That's happening right now in a very real way in Ireland. There was an incident, is the only way I can really describe it, of an eviction that was, although technically legal, not moral. And the bank was getting paid and everything else, but they manipulated the laws because the bank makes more money if they can have you pay off 3/4 of your mortgage and then steal your house and then sell it. And that's exactly what happened. And when none of the local Garda were willing to enforce this eviction, the bank hired a group of mercenaries, more or less. They're UDF, if I remember right, and had them brought over from England into Ireland, basically smuggled them in, had them evict this family violently. And in the process of that, a very large group
I remember
of
this.
locals...
I didn't know all the stuff to that, but yeah.
Yeah, a very large group of locals showed up, killed one of their attack dogs, beat the living crap out of all of them, videotaped the whole thing, which is hilarious, and then kicked them out. And then almost immediately afterwards... and remember, the Garda were protecting these mercenaries. They suddenly showed up to protect these mercenaries after they show up. And the Garda take off the moment that the violence starts because they're like, this isn't freaking worth it. I want nothing to do with this.
I'm not getting paid
and they
enough.
disappear. Yeah, exactly. I'm not getting paid enough to get my ass handed to me by all of these dudes. And this is fairly rural Ireland, which means that the IRA still holds a lot of sway. And the IRA has now started throwing the photos of all of these mercenaries up on social media. We figured out exactly who they are.
Hold them accountable.
Yeah, here are their names. Here's where they live. Here's their background. Here's where they work. All of this stuff has now been thrown out there. They did that to a couple of the Garda officers who were there and completely threw it out there because now these guys are going to be absolutely terrified to ever do that again because they know that everyone knows who they are. So they're never going to do it again, ever. They're never going to come anywhere near it because what happens if I do, somebody recognizes me, what's going to happen? They don't know, and who knows? Maybe they'll get their ass kicked again. Maybe they'll get killed. Who knows what'll happen? But they're certainly not going to make that risk again because everyone knows who they are.
Yeah, that anonymity is really important to the state, both in terms of preventing us from having it. And by the way, the flip side of that is something that we, dare I say, oh, you have a mouse in your pocket? Yeah, I have a fucking mouse in my pocket. I do. Okay? It's a fucking anarchist mouse, and it said we. Sue me. But anyway, we need to, that's one of the key technologies that has to be developed and shared and perpetuated and spread out. And that is the ability to remain anonymous. I don't know can you ever truly be anonymous? But yeah, make it so that they got to spend $5 million just to figure out who one person is. Make it really, really expensive for them to figure out just who one of these people is, let alone all of them on this fucking network dealing anonymously. If we can exchange goods and services anonymously, they're fucked. They're done. That's the key. We can exchange goods, services, information, networking, strategies, all these things anonymously, securely, value. Yeah, well, goods and services, value. Yeah. That's your second realm that just emerges into a reality where the state just can't exist because it can't get. This is the dream. This is the best way for it to happen. I don't know if it'll happen. It might happen in some places like this. It might happen in some places like this, or it's just one day nobody shows up. It's like, dude, this ain't even profitable anymore. And it's like there's like 3 statists left in like 10,000 people here, where we should probably go. Yeah, we're gonna go. You guys have fun. We're gone.
Right.
Yeah, that's what Paul. That's one of the things that Shane really pushes. It's security culture.
Yeah.
Like we live in a society where the Patriot Act was enacted in 2001. So we've had 17 years of being spied on legally. Metadata collected. That's not including like NDAA and all the other stuff. But most people, they don't take their privacy serious anymore. They don't use PGP. They don't use VPNs. They don't use the available methods to hide their identity or to hide their actions, to hide their communications from the government or from other coercive forces.
I don't believe, by the way, that.
Well, everybody's walking around with one of these. Everyone's walking around with one of these. You have a microphone. You have a couple of high-definition cameras. And you're walking around with it all the time. And any one of these things can be active. In fact, this one probably is right now. I can almost guarantee you. Active
Yep. I got
friggin' now. And being
right
listened to.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think you have to. I for some people, just go totally. And Ben talks about this in his book. You know, some people are at different places. Some people are out there in front. Some people are underground,
above ground, below ground,
all that. But and then you can also you can be both. You can have an above ground presence. I can have this phone, but if I'm doing other stuff, then that's when I put this phone away and I bring out my other device. But I think it's actually probably a decent thing to actually maintain for a lot of people to maintain somewhat of an above ground presence. Like I want to be a faux. I want to be a faux stater in the truest sense of, well, not in the truest sense of the word, because I'm not going to promote statism in any way, shape, or form. But I'll be a faux stater in the sense that to the state, they'll be looking out and like he pays his taxes and like even if I get to a position where I can be completely self-sustaining and off the grid, I'm going to keep a part of me on the grid just so I don't look like I've left, just so I don't raise alarms.
Right, because once you completely disappear, all of a sudden they go, where'd you go?
Now they want to know.
Yeah, the illusion of conformity.
Yes, absolutely. In that sense, I'm a faux state. I'm acting like a faux state myself. Yeah.
Right. So
I'm being the faux state I want to see.
All right. So we got Liberty Cat in chat here. I'll read these and we'll do some closing thoughts and we'll begin to wrap this up. I know Andrew has to get back to work and it has almost been a couple hours. So she said that she asked if cryptocurrency can be traced. Well, there is cryptanalysis, which they do. And obviously, it's called the Crypto Wars. Unfortunately, Monero, there are some vulnerabilities that Richard Spigani's. It's not perfect, right? It hasn't been around that long. It's not perfect.
Right.
Bitcoin privacy is going to be enhanced by the Lightning Network, which thankfully it's not widespread yet, but it's functioning and there's some money behind it, so that's good. So I think privacy with Bitcoin. And maybe Monero too will increase going into the future. So I think that's a really, really positive thing.
But again, you don't need 100% anonymity, and I don't know if you can get 100% anonymity. The idea is that you make it really expensive for them to find one person.
Right.
You make it. They have to spend a lot of money on running whatever they got to run to find you. If it's raising in essence. They're getting in your business, man. This is a coercive action by them. They're mining. They're interfering with your private data, and they're using force. And so, if you have anonymity protections, that raises the cost of coercion. And what they'll end up doing is they're going to look for some easy people to find.
The people who practice really bad security. The ones that bought their Monero on coin, like on an exchange like Coinbase or something, like those jackasses.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if they do. They probably don't do Monero, but like an exchange like that where they require personally identifiable information. It's like let's track the person that bought easily traceable coins. Let's do that. That seems pretty easy.
So they'll find a couple of them, and they'll also set a couple. They'll actually create an anarchist just to set them up. Like they create terrorists to set them up. So they'll do that too. But they're not going to be substantially hitting any of and all you folks out there that tend to gravitate towards one particular personality and just stick with that personality, dude, that is stupid. None of us should be pinning on one person. We have to have a whack-a-mole approach, even in the people that we have as influencers in our lives. I'll say, because you pin on one person and they take that one person out, and guess what? And if your strength in winning is relying on one person, that person gets taken out, it's gonna fuck you up. But if you have multiple examples that you're pinning on and following, I think you have much better. It's the whack-a-mole. So that would be one advice. That matters. I think it's important. Because then we don't have that's the superhero stars of anarchy that dominate the conversation. Right. Which I'm not begrudging them dominating the conversation. It's just kind of happened. It's not their fault. It's our fault. We're the ones that focus on them.
Sure. So I think if
have I stepped into something? Uh-oh.
Fucking Paul.
What have I done?
Oh.
All right. Anyway.
I don't even know what I've done. Is my fly down? My fly's down, isn't it?
Anyway, so I think to wrap this up, that if there's one conclusion that we might have come to in this episode, not to speak for you guys, why I said might have, is that that in order for a free society to exist, a faux state, a second realm, something along those lines, whatever term you want to lay on it, defense, having defense capabilities is absolutely necessary. It's not just an option. It is necessary for the sustainability of said free society, second realm, faux state, or whatever. So I guess I'll go around here. Any final closing thoughts that you guys may have?
Yeah, I'd add to that. I would add to that that if you are part of a group that is trying to have a non-state solution in which defense is not like first and foremost in your equations, you're wasting time and resources. You are basically like a double agent for the state unintentionally, because you're just gobbling up resources that might otherwise be put into projects that might actually, some of them might be, but most, I might strongly suggest it though. I strongly suggest if you're building something in which defense is not considered.
All right, very
you're
good.
Doing it wrong. Please stop gobbling up our resources.
In any anarchist pacifist, rather than saying that, this is a conversation that needs to happen more often. How do you protect your investment? Not even just getting it off the ground, but once it is, how do you keep it from dying? And I don't know. I'm really happy with this. This conversation. I think more of these need to happen because, obviously, my big thing is defensive violence and arms and ammunition and all of those things, and in crypto and navigating a digital world and technological world that the state is going to seek to dominate more than we.
A peaceful man is not a good man. A good man is a dangerous man that has under voluntary control. And I don't mean that just in the means of physical defense, of firearms, of knowledge of violence, but I mean that also digitally. I mean that also mentally and morally and ideologically. If you don't have the ability to defend yourself, the ability physically, mentally, online, if you don't have the ability to protect your privacy, to do the sort of things that we've talked about in this show, then you're not ever going to be free, because you're still going to be subjected to outside coercive forces. We have to foster a culture of freedom. We have to foster a culture of defense if we're ever going to do anything.
For sure. Can I say one last thing? I already said something.
Very short. Very short.
Okay. Very short. Okay. First and foremost, you really have we all of us, we must be working on disentangling, and that disentangling part, that's the part you want to be public about as far as your successes. Like, I'm lowered my bills doing this, and I grow my garden. Share all that stuff, and you're going to attract like-minded people. And then hopefully, even in your own area, you're going to find people that they're still statists, but they appreciate this. So that's key. Start doing that like immediately. That's something we can all be doing like immediately, like now. Whatever you're doing, I'm trying to, and I think all you guys are doing it to some degree too. So
strategic withdrawal. Yep, exactly. Just the same
strategic
thing, different word.
Withdrawal. And I would say in not all of it, but a lot of it in a public way, because that's going to be a powerful, demonstrable influence on people's lives. They're going to look at that and be like, I want that.
Lead by example.
And once they experience that type of self-directed opportunity, they're going to want more of it. Then the state guy inside of them dies.
Yep. Right on. Well said. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for taking some time today. It was a great discussion. We need to do this like more regularly, like once every couple of months or something. I don't know how. We need to do it more regularly. And Liberty Cat, yes, definitely come to the next show. I think we'll probably do these as patron only, at least initially. I don't think there's anything to cut out of that. But better safe than sorry. So thanks for supporting the Bonnie Podcast on Patreon. Certainly do appreciate it. And until next time, laissez-faire.
Peace.